I know you're gonna dig this.
This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles, recorded live here at SATV Studios in Dayton, Ohio. Now, zooming in all the way from Los Angeles, California, Tiemeyer McCain, original member and vocalist for the funk group LAKESIDE from 1969 to 1988. Welcome and thank you so much for agreeing to come on our show. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, and it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
You know, one of the things that I'm going to just start off with, how did you get started in music? And lead me all the way up to you joining LAKESIDE.
Oh, okay. Actually, you know, I can't really tell you how I got started. I just always loved music. My mother used to sing with her nieces and her sisters in South Carolina. And they used to go and sing in different churches, and they would turn the joint out, you know, and I never knew that. You know, as I thought back and I talked to a family member, I remember growing up that whenever my cousins and my nieces, my mother's nieces would come, it would be singing all over the house. I mean, these high-pitched voices, whoo, everything all over the house. And like, we just kind of got used to it, you know? And then my mother used to sing in the choir and stuff like that. And certain musicians she used to love, like she loved Brooke Benton, you know, I'm going way back, right? Yeah. Sam Cooke. Mahalia Jackson was a favorite, right? And so I started listening to these songs and I started learning them, you know, because I liked the voices, right? And then I went go over to my aunt's house and she ran a bootleg joint and she always played blues, nothing but blues. So I got familiar with B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, and Little Milton and all of that, so different kinds of music. And I just started picking it up. I just started. And then as time went on, went to school and got into music class. That was one of my favorite classes, was music. This was even in elementary school. And then finally, as I grew up, started getting into junior high, I came across two guys, Brian Mulberry and James White. We called him Tony. Sometimes we call him Tony Joe. But anyway, we got together because they could sing, and I was, you know, finally I was around some people that could really sing, right? And I learned a lot of harmony from them. So we started hanging out. I mean, we were at one point just inseparable. And we picked up Ricky Abernathy, and Ricky was singing. It was hard to tie Ricky down, because Ricky was always all over the place and he was easily sidetracked, but we were serious. We wanted to sing, right? And Ricky's voice was outstanding and we really wanted him in the group. So we finally, you know, got him and settled him down and he started singing with us, but then he got into some trouble with the law and then they shipped him off. Now we were young kids still, but they shipped him off, you know. So here it is, we needed somebody. Then finally, Mark Wood came in the picture, Mark Wood Jr. He came in the picture. He had seen us a couple of times and he always wanted to sing with us.
Tiemeyer, tell me, where is all of this locating? Where is all of this happening? Is it in Ohio? Is it happening in California? Where is all of this happening?
All of this is happening in Dayton, Ohio.
All right. I just wanted you to make sure, I wanted everybody to make sure where we are talking about. Okay.
Yes, different schools, Colonel White, Roth, and especially Roosevelt, you know, because of course that was my school. So
we'll let you go by on that because, you know, Dunbar had great singers too. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dunbar had some great singers, but it wasn't Roosevelt. Okay, we'll keep going.
Okay.
All right. So we finally got Mark. And so the four of us, Mark, myself, Tony, and Brian, we started singing. And we did a lot of practicing because we wanted to be tight. We were good dancers, so we would dance and all of that. And then finally, Steve Shockley, Tony introduced me to Steve Shockley. And he was about 14 years old at the time, but he was playing in a band called the Monterey's, and these were some grown men, you know, out of school grown men, serious musicians, right? But he was their lead guitar, right? And he told them about us. So they were like, okay, but see, their show, the Monterey's by themselves put on a dynamic show. And then when they added us to it, the four singers, I mean, it was just ridiculously good. We had packed houses, you know, everywhere we would go. And we just did the chitlin circuit. We did a lot of these nightclubs, right? And young kids, we were still in school and everything, right? And
where were some of the where was some of the chitlin circuit that you all traveled?
Kentucky, Lima, Ohio. We had, I mean, it was clubs all in the cut everywhere, even in Dayton. I don't know if you remember the Oak Leaf Club that didn't
yes,
open.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that club opened about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when it opened. And people would party all night. Well, we did that one too. So it was all over, you know, the tri-state areas, you know. And then, where am I? We got Stevie, we had the Monterey's, and we started performing. Then finally, the Monterey's, they said, man, we're ready to go on the road, because we would go to certain places, then come back to Dayton. And then the next weekend, we'd go perform somewhere else. And they got tired of it. They said, no, we're going to go to this one gig, and after that gig, we're going to keep going. We're going to be on the road. Well, we couldn't go because we were in high school. We were, you know, and some of us, well, no, we were all in high school. And so they fired us.
Okay. So
here we are, 4 singers and a guitar player, right? And then finally, let's see, at one time I went to some other musicians, because in Dayton there's musicians everywhere and singers. And I found myself over somebody's house and the band was playing. And I was really impressed with this little keyboard player, Norman Beavers. He used to wear a Mexican sombrero. You know, he put it on his back and he'd be playing his little keyboards. That little boy was bad, right? And I talked to him and his brother Vincent, played bass. And we were going to try to get together and make some music and do some stuff, right? And then after a little while, Stevie came, he gave me a call, or he came over. He said, I got a band. You know, because we was trying to get a band, and I thought, you know, I had one with Norman and Vincent, right? And he said, I got a band. And I said, oh yeah? So I got the rest of the guys together, and everybody came over to my house, including the new band members. Well, when they walked in the door, lo and behold, it was Norman and his brother Vincent. And I said, I know these guys, right? So we all got together and we started making music and rehearsing, but we didn't have a drummer. We had to find a drummer. So we found Terry Williams, and we went through a couple of drummers first, and then we went to Terry Williams. We finally settled on him because he was right in the pocket for us. And then after Terry, we started performing, and Norman and Vincent's mother was our manager. And she actually kept our chops up, because she had us performing at the Salem Mall and little places here and there, you know. So we kept our chops up and we stayed rehearsing really good. But finally it got too much for her and she couldn't take it. She had other businesses and things that she was doing, so we had to let her go. And she was okay with it, you know. And then we started going through some other managers, and boy, that became a big thing. And We ran into a guy named Danny Brown who became our manager.
I remember Danny Brown.
Yeah, you remember Danny?
Oh yes, I remember Danny.
Well, Danny, he hooked us up with a couple of places. At one point, we was going to sign with Curtom Records, and Curtom Records with Curtis Mayfield and Eddie Thomas. But something happened between the two of them, and they broke up. So Eddie Thomas went his own way. Curtis Mayfield kept Curtom Records, and Eddie Thomas was going to start another record label called Lakeside. And this was in Chicago, and it was on Lakeshore Boulevard Avenue or whatever.
Lakeshore Drive.
Lakeshore Drive, right? It was right there. So he wanted to name us Ohio Lakeside Express, and he thought it would fit good with his label, Lakeside. I think his label was like Lakeside Express or something like that. But anyway, it was Lakeside something. And we were okay with that because we liked the name Lakeside because of the Lakeview Palladium. You know, everybody performed at Lakeside in the Lakeview Palladium, you know, in there. So we were okay with that. But that didn't pan out too good with Eddie Thomas. We went to Detroit, and the Temptations was going to produce us. Otis Williams and Melvin Franklin was going to produce us. They were trying to work out something that didn't pan out. Our dealings with Danny didn't pan out too good. And then all of a sudden, the two guys, Brian and Tony, just quit on me. They just quit the group. They said they got tired of doing it. They didn't want to do it anymore. I was so hurt, you know? So we replaced those two with Mark Wood's sister, Shirley, and with Thomas Shelby. So they came into the group, right? And I loved that group because the harmonies, having that girl's voice in there mixed with these guys, and the harmonies was just cold-blooded, right? And then we had Shirley dancing, because you know we're pretty known for our dancing, and Shirley was dancing and doing the steps just like we were. So we were kind of different in Dayton at that time. A lot of the other groups in Dayton would come and check us out, right? Then finally, what happens? Shirley decides to quit the group. She was older, she was in college, we were still in school. She decided to quit the group. So then we had to replace her. Ricky came back after his little excursion, you know, where he had to go. He came back, and so that's when we hit the road. And we went out to California.
Now, what year was that?
Oh, when we went to California, that had to be around 72. Yeah.
And you all had finished high school by then?
Yeah, we had finished high school. Well, some of us, because the group went from about 13 to, so no, everybody didn't graduate. I graduated, but a few others didn't, you know. So because at that point, we ranged from 13 to like 17 or 18 was a group span, right?
The ages?
So the ages, yeah. And so, yeah, we head out to we were supposed to go to Oklahoma for 2 weeks.
Now, who was scheduling you at that time? Who was your manager, or were you all just doing it on your own?
Well, Steve knew this, well, we had been to Oklahoma from other managers had taken us to Oklahoma.
And we're talking about Steve Shockley, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other managers had taken us to Oklahoma because that was one of the places that we would always perform. So we knew the club there, and we went there. And this guy, the owner of the club, he was a crazy dude. We performed, and while we were on stage, anything could happen. We were on stage. Have you ever seen these cowboy movies when one person get mad and they'll sock one guy, and then next thing you know, the other person, and then the whole place is fighting? That's exactly what happened while we were on that stage, right?
Oh my.
And we didn't know, we just kept performing and just watching people fighting, right? And then after that particular show was over, the owner didn't want to pay us. And we were trying to get our money, and he got mad, burning up mad. And he went and pulled a gun on Mark and was getting ready to shoot Mark, right? Mark is trying to reason with the man, but this man is shaking with the gun, you know. And I said, Mark, don't try to talk to him. Let's just leave, you know. And I had to almost push Mark away because this guy was just crazy. And so we left, and while we didn't have any money, we had maybe about $70 or something like that. And we had one van, and in the van was all of our equipment and a big mattress and all of us. So it was like 8, plus we had a couple of roadies that was with us. So it was about 10 or 12 of us that was all in this van.
Oh my.
With the equipment. And we said, man, let's just go to California. And because of being with the Monterey's, Stevie knew of this one club called California Sahara in California. So we packed up everything and we went to California. Nobody knew us there, and the club wasn't doing that well. So, you know, he said, okay, you guys can perform here, but I can't really pay you because you're not doing that well. And so we stayed there. He let us live there for a while. So we would perform and during the evening on the weekends, and not too many people would come in. You know, you could count them all probably on one hand that would come in the club, but those people got the show of their life because we didn't have nothing else to do but perform. So we performed our hearts out just for a few people. And then finally we started scouting around California, Los Angeles, and we found a place called Mavericks Flat. And when we found that place, we told them, hey, we'll perform for free, you know, and then if you like us, you hire us. And so we did that a few times with some different clubs, and they loved us, and we started getting gigs. And Mavericks was a regular place for us that we'd always go to, right? And we had people all around the corner because they never seen anything like this. They always said we were from back east, you know. So they never saw us with our Dayton way of dressing. You know, Dayton had some clothes, right? So with our way of dressing, it was just unique and different, you know. And so we started performing there, and then lo and behold, Vincent, the bass player, decides to leave. We had to replace him. So we replaced him with Marvin Craig. And then next thing I know, Ricky decides to leave. Ricky Abernathy decides to leave. We had to replace him. So we replaced him with Otis Stokes. And then Terry, the drummer, left, and we had a hard time finding a drummer. But eventually we came across Little Fred Alexander. We call him Little Fred. And he was, very talented drummer. I was very happy to have Fred in the group because he had it going. Because, you know, being a dancer and all of that, and he just had it going on. And everything fit perfect. And so that's when we became the Lakeside that everybody pretty much know. But the actual people that started the group was Steve Shockley, myself, and Mark Wood Jr. We were the three. We were the actual nucleus, and then a little bit later, Norman Beavers. So the four of us was actually the nucleus. But it really started with the three of us, pretty much. Mark, Stevie, and myself. And then from there, while we were in Mavericks was a place that drew all kind of people, record companies, and everybody would come down there. So Norman Whitfield had his eyes on us with Motown, Norman Whitfield. Frank Wilson had his eyes on us. He was also with Motown. I'm trying to make a long story short, but after a while, Dick Griffey became our manager. Now, Dick Griffey was a big promoter. For all over the United States. You couldn't go into any venue without Dick Griffey's permission. And you know, Dick was the talent coordinator for Soul Train. So all the acts that came on Soul Train was Dick Griffey's acts because he promoted all of them. So, and he had his eyes on us, you know, because, he wanted to be our manager and we let him be our manager. That's when we kind of got into the Hollywood scene. Dick Ricky would pull us into different things and let us mingle with a lot of the Hollywood people, start going to concerts. That's when I first met Michael Jackson and all the people, Smokey Robinson. We were invited to a Soul Train Christmas party that Don used to have every year. So we were invited, we went there, and man, I couldn't believe it. Now think of this, we're little guys from Dayton, right? And all of these people that we're looking at were people that we admired for years, right? And now here we are rubbing shoulders with these people, right? Going to different parties and stuff. And so once you hook up with somebody, they pull you into this place and this party, and that's going on over here. So you start knowing people. Well, after a while, Dick decided to get into the record business. So him and Don Cornelius started Soul Train Records. At this time that they started Soul Train Records, we were with Frank Wilson over at Motown. Okay, so that didn't pan out. So Frank and Motown split up. Frank Wilson went to ABC Records, and we cut our first album with Frank Wilson at ABC Records.
Which was?
It was called Lakeside. It's a picture of us on a roller coaster, and it was called Lakeside. And one song did pretty good locally in Los Angeles. It was called If I Didn't Have You. It was a ballad, beautiful song.
Who wrote it?
It was one of Frank Wilson's writers.
Okay.
Wrote it. And but here's the thing that I liked about working with Frank and eventually working with Norman Whitfield. It helped us with our writing skills and producing. We had two different producers that we had worked with. That was Norman and Frank. Frank was more technical. You had to be in the pocket, and the pitches had to be right. When you sing, it had to be right there. But Frank didn't want to use our musicians. He used those Motown musicians, but he used us, the singers, the four of us, the singers. He used us. And he used Stevie on maybe one or two cuts. And one thing he used Fred Lewis. I forgot, we picked Fred Lewis up. We called him Timbales. We picked him up when we was in California. So, because he's from California. Fred is from Dallas, Texas. Everybody else from Dayton. So anyway, we learned a lot from those Motown writers and producers and all of that. Frank was very meticulous on every little thing. It had to be perfect. Then we worked with Norman Whitfield, and he wasn't as particular. He was more of a feel. If the feel is there, he didn't care if we were a little bit under on the pitch, because we were singing a line for Norman Whitfield. And I was positive that, okay, we're gonna have to do that over again because it was a little under in pitch. And we said, you ready for us to do that again? He was like, no, leave it alone. And we said, well, it was a little under, leave it alone, because the feel was there. So we started learning different things, being in the pocket, making sure the pitches was there, and making sure the feel was there. So we learned quite a bit on that. And then after working with them, Norman Whitfield trying to get us to sign with him, Dick called us one time and said, I'm coming down to y'all's rehearsal hall. I'm going to give you an offer that you can't refuse. At this time, Dick had started Solar Records. And so he came down and he definitely gave us an offer we couldn't refuse. He said, I'm going to let you guys write all of your songs, and I'm going to let you guys co-produce your album. Because he said, I got to have an investment in there. So he had Leon Silvers to be his man in there, just to make sure, he had to feel comfortable, because he didn't want to turn everything over to us, right? So we proved ourselves, and we worked with Leon, who was easy to work with. Spent most of the time laughing and acting crazy, but we got the job done. And then after a while, we told Dick we wanted to produce our own stuff. And he said, okay, and that's when we got our first hit. Well, not our first hit, but our biggest hit, Fantastic Voyage. And then from there on, Lakeside was born, and we were on our way, we were moving. And then after a while, we started going from nightclubs and chitlin circuits and all that to big arenas. and stadiums and things like that. I mean, this was a big thing. Me and Tommy and myself, we had to even change our choreography, because when you're working in a nightclub, you don't have to be so big with your movements. You can keep everything pretty, cool. But because we were in a big places, our movements, everything had to be big. We had to use the entire stage. So we became excellent performers. And I have to say, we were very, very good. And when you came to a Lakeside show, you got your money's worth. You probably got a little bit more than your money's worth, So we started doing that. But all during this time, I was feeling a call on my life. It was always there. I would find myself ministering to people and having this call. I was going to church. I had gotten saved, and it took a while for the group to really accept that when I got saved, because I wasn't doing a lot of the things that I used to do, and some of them were. It was just pretty tough at one point, But then I stayed consistent, and they saw I was serious, and the uncomfortableness turned into respect. They got to the place that they just totally respect me. When we was getting ready to go out on the road, they wouldn't move the bus until I anointed and prayed for the driver and anointed the bus. Then they were comfortable to go. And before we went on stage, we would join hands and would pray. We made sure that in our music, we didn't have nasty, suggestive music. Our shows were clean. You could bring your kids to our show. We kept it clean. And so that was kind of the thing that we did, right? And I was a stickler on our lyrics. I had a lot of them to rewrite some of their lyrics because it was too over the top, and they would get mad at me, but they would do it, And so, so we all learned how to produce, how to write, and do all of that because of the people that we worked with. And then the day came that I had to leave. And I remember talking to my wife, and I said, I'm so tired of singing, "Oh Baby," I want to sing, "Oh Jesus." Now, I didn't know that at that point it was going to be a big turn in my life, leaving Lakeside. And it did. I went from making thousands and thousands and performing in front of thousands of people, traveling all over the world and all of that kind of stuff, to basically zero, making hardly anything, And I didn't think about it. I was like, gosh, I don't have any skills. All I did was sing. And I moved out into an area where, it was mostly majority white people, so there was no room for a black musician, So I had to get jobs, and I started getting jobs. And that's so funny because I was going through some hard times. My wife stood right by me. I had a family at this point, and we were going through some hard times, but I never had a desire to go back into the music industry. I didn't have a desire to go back with Lakeside. And I knew I could have called them because I left on good terms. It wasn't anything against them or, a lot of them would tell you that they pretty much expected that to happen sooner or later. So it wasn't any of that. So I realized that, I had jobs as a construction worker. I did steel construction, sales. I sold everything from safes, vacuum cleaners. I was trying to make a living, right? And then finally I said, forget this, I gotta go to school. So I went back to school and got an education. And then I landed a job and I became an instructor, actually. And I started working for colleges. And next thing I knew, I was being promoted. I was a director of one of the schools. And then I became the director of 3 of the owners' schools. And then I was there for a good while, then went to another school, and that owner made me the director of 2 of his schools. And then I was there for a while, then went to another school, and I became campus president. I ran the whole entire operation, right? And then had other jobs throughout the years. I worked for University of Phoenix. I was a counselor there, and I worked for two other schools, and was the director of admissions and all of that. So my background became education, and I stayed in that field until I retired. I'm retired now, so I stayed in that field till I was retired, and now it left me more room for ministry. And I started Church of Jesus Christ Ministry, my wife and I, in 2011, we started Church of Jesus Christ Ministry. And we've been going on since then, going strong. And now I have Church of Jesus Christ Ministry, and then I have Church on the Phone. It's a group of people from all over the United States. Every Monday night at 6 o'clock, we come together and we actually have church, a worship session, the whole thing. So we actually have church. And then after a while, I started some other things. The Lord was moving me into different things. Now I have 2 radio programs, one called UCA Radio, where I do music and a message. And so that's on every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So where you are in Dayton, it would be 6 p.m. So we started that, and it's an hour program. And then after that started rolling pretty good, the Lord gave me an idea to start another radio program called Christian Talk, where I have a co-host and people can dial in and we talk. And that's really moving. That's moving a lot faster than the others. Am I going too much? Do you have a question or something for me?
Well, I do, and so you've rapidly taken me to where you are today.
Right.
And so I just have a few questions to ask. One of them is, do you still stay in touch with the Lakeside members that are still performing?
Yeah, we still, stay in contact. At one point, they were really busy, so we didn't really stay in contact that much. But yeah, I still talk to them. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at having one of them on my show, my talk show. So let's see, was it last week? I think it was last week. I had LaBelle of the Whispers. LaBelle Degree of the Whispers was one of my guests on there. Next week, on my Christian Talk program. That's every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Next week, I'm gonna have Howard Hewitt is gonna be my co-host. So
Howard is an Ohioan, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other thing that I wanted to ask you is that you've had such a vibrant and interesting musical career, and so. And we're very grateful that you have chosen to come on Funk Chronicles. And I just wanted to know, why do you think it's important that we have a Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center?
I think it's important because there's so many musicians, so many talented musicians, especially in Dayton, in Ohio. One thing about Dayton, you either were a musician or you were in trouble with the law or something, And it's so many musicians, and the real musicians. Back then we took it serious. We really wanted to be the best on our acts, whatever we were playing. We wanted to be the best at it. So we rehearsed, and we really listen to every part of music. When we're singing as a group, we listen to every part in a song so to make sure we're singing the right notes, singing the right chords, everybody's playing the right chords. It was serious, and there's a lot of musicians that's like that. As a matter of fact, when we first started performing and other musicians came to see you, if you wasn't performing right, you would know it because they would dog you out. So we knew we had to perform right because there's so many musicians there. So it's very important for that. And people that made a name for themselves from out of Dayton, Ohio. You could go, the list is almost endless. of the stars that came out of Dayton. And so, yes, it's important to have that so that other musicians coming up can see, where they came from. They came from us. Just like we used to look up to the Ohio players and a whole lot of the Imperials, and whole lot of groups and bands back then and musicians. So yes, it is extremely important to have that. And I'm proud of it.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Tiemeyer, for being with us today and sharing your story and experience with Lakeside, which is such a part of the Chronicles of the funk scene. And that I wish you and your wife so much success in your ministry. And when God calls you to do something, you cannot ignore it, because he'll keep pushing you until it's time to do it. I just went through something similar to that. And so I know that when God speaks to you, you need to listen. And he'll make a way for you, whatever he chooses for you to do. Thank you so much. And this is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles. Until the next time, let's keep it funky, funky, funky.
Mm-hmm.